So the Supreme Court on Monday, 11th January, has had some very strong words for the central government over its approach to the negotiations with the farmers over their protests against the 3 farm laws. Now, in the hearing which took place on Monday, the court is hearing a whole batch of different petitions. Some have been filed asking for removal of the protesters to alternative sites. Some have asked for the laws to be themselves scrapped as they are illegal and unconstitutional. So there's a whole set of different petitions going on in the court. The court had started first hearing one of these petitions which had asked for removal of the protesters around a month ago, in case you might recall. And at that time, the court had been very clear that they would not interfere with the protests themselves, but they asked the government to keep them updated on what was going on. And the government kept saying, we're having negotiations, we're having things going on. And they also asked the government to say, okay, now, are you interested? Is there a possibility that you might actually stay the implementation of those laws so as to improve the negotiations? Now, all this took place back in December, and today was the first hearing since then, and the court today was extremely, had raised a lot of points with the central government. The court, and they directly said, that we are extremely disappointed with your approach. The CJI Chief Justice of India, Bobde, he specifically pulled up the centre for failing to conduct consultations prior to the drafting of these laws. And when the Attorney General tried to say, the centre has been planning these laws for so long, the first committee was set up in 2000, he very abruptly struck that off and said, that's not a justification for what happened recently. And on that basis, the CJI is saying that they will appoint an expert committee which will be able to properly address these concerns by the farmers. But in the meanwhile, they have suggested that the centre should consider staying the implementation of the law. And if the centre does not, then the Supreme Court itself will. So I'm going to read out another point which they said. They said, if there is some sense of responsibility, you can show this now by saying that there will be no implementation of the laws. We don't see why there should be insistence on implementation of the laws at all costs. So the court basically saying that when this kind of law has come through like this, if the farmers are raising so many objections, why not and not ram through the laws and first see what the farmers have to say and then try and approach the issue from there. They've taken objection to the fact that the central government's approach here doesn't seem to be, giving enough trust or faith to the farmers. They pointed out that, you have so many old people, sick people, women, children, all at the protest sites. They wouldn't just be there for nothing in this cold weather. So very strong comments by the Supreme Court. In fact, towards the end, they again also reiterated their objections to the way the central government has approached this, saying, we do not believe that you're handling it correctly. We have to take some action today. We do not believe that you are being effective. Now, one of the things which the court raised was that they are a bit concerned that if this situation just keeps continuing with the protests going on, then there is a possibility that eventually there may be some sort of accident, some sort of mishap which may lead to violence and bloodshed, and that's something which they don't want to be responsible for. Now, the central government was not happy with the suggestion of a stay. The Attorney General suggested that there is no question of the Supreme Court putting a stay on the order themselves, that you can only have a stay on the laws in very limited circumstances. And the Solicitor General also raised objections to this. Harish Salve, who was representing one of these petitioners who's asking for removal of the protesters, tried to argue that that the only circumstance in which this stay could work is if the farmers actually give assurances that they'll call off their protests or move to other sites. Otherwise, there's no reason to have this kind of stay. Now, the Supreme Court initially was thinking about passing an order today itself on Monday, 11th January, but eventually they realized they had to get the lawyers who are representing the farmer unions have to get instructions from their clients before they can give any assurances of what will happen. So they've given a day for that to take place, and tomorrow the matter has been listed again on Tuesday, 12th January, where we will now hear some arguments from the farmer bodies about whether, what kind of commitments they're willing to give if there is a stay on the implementation of the laws. Now, the central government is still going to oppose that, so that's again an issue which is going to come up, that can these farm laws be stayed? Does the Supreme Court have the power to do so? The court seems quite adamant that it does, so that's again going to be something exciting to watch out for, to see how it gets argued there in court. I mean, a lot of this was quite positive in terms of the court being willing to ask questions of the government, but there was a slightly problematic comment towards the end which raised a lot of controversy, where the Chief Justice suggested that the women and children and elderly people at the sites were being kept at the protest sites. He used specifically the word kept, and suggested and tried to ask the lawyers who are representing the farmers to maybe request them to go back in the interest of their health. At the same time, the CJI did clarify that it's not, that they will pass any orders to that effect. And he, at multiple times during the hearing, said that that the court would not try to curb the right to protest. So an interesting hearing. As of now, the farmers' protest will continue unabated. The court will not be interfering whatsoever at this point of time. The central government is opposed to this court's intervention per se in terms of a stay. They're also, they try to raise concerns over the farmers' tractor rally, which is going to be taken out on Republic Day on 26 January, which the Supreme Court was very skeptical about their concerns and said, look, if you want to deal with the law and order situation, you can take whatever measures are required. You don't have to make this an issue in this hearing. So as of now, an important step to see now where the court's going to go, what is going to be who's going to be part of this expert committee. They've suggested former retired Chief Justice of India like R.M. Lodha or P. Satyasivam, but we'll have to see who exactly gets recommended, what the farmers unions are willing to say. So stay tuned to the Quint for all those updates, which will be coming through tomorrow on Tuesday, 12th January.